Okay, shout out muna sa ating lahat. Welcome to BTLGT Day 2, Basic Training in Liquefied Gas Tankers. So we are now recording live for the sole purpose of sharing this video for everyone to see dito sa SIMULA TV. Okay lang ba mga sir? Shout out muna dyan kay Wilbert, kay Jerome, kay Junior Wanilo, kay John Paulo, and kay Andrew Bryan, and syempre kay Sir Vicente.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Na natin sir kung ma-post natin ito kasi tagal na natin hindi nagpo-post eh. Yung isang natin, sabi niya, sir, ikaw pala sir yung Seaman-tulungin kasi nakita niya ako sa practicum. Sir, pinanood ko talaga? O sir, kasi nag-advanced learning ako. Wow. Pang-advance pala ang Seaman-tulungin. Diba? So, sabi niya, sir, ang ganda ng pagka-explain mo, mas naintindihan ko. Yeah. In fairness naman sa instructor na nagturo sa kanya, sabi ko, sino mas magaling? Yung instructor mo o ako? Siyempre, ikaw, sir. Ayos, di ba? Sino ba instructor mo? Yung tatay mo, sir. Ang tatay ko pala instructor niya, si Captain Jess Antiquera. 35 years na nagbarko yun. Aba. Pero mas malupit daw yung anak. Aba. O sir, natutunan ko kasi sir, yung water cycle, mas madaling maintindihan. Di ba? So, kaya lagi ko sina-explain sa inyo yung water cycle. The best yun. Okay, ngayon, dito tayo sa day 2, mga sir. Okay lang po ba na naka-record tayo? With your permission?
Okay lang, sir.
Sir, okay lang, sir.
So, ayan, kitang-kita yung mga kagwapuan niya dito, sir. Isa, dalawa, tatlo, apat, lima. Lima kayo. Tapos, dalawa sa kabilang page. So, 6 na lang natin. Para alam nilang live tayo. Okay. So, this is day 2. Day 2, ulitin ko lang po mga sir, ha? So, kanina in-explain natin, di ba, sa day 1, na yung tank cleaning at yung change cargo, yun lang yung medyo challenging na area ng ating trabaho. Pero the rest, madali lang po yan. Okay? Ispreketik wala stick. No, ganun lang yung mga usapan sa barko eh. Kasi kabisado na ng mga datihan yung trabaho nila, paulit-ulit lang naman barko natin sir eh. Ang trabaho natin, no? Routine job. Kaya yun ang trabaho natin, routine job. Okay? Kaya kung hindi ka masyadong sanay sa paulit-ulit, maboboard ka. Okay? Kaya paminsan-minsan, kailangan natin ng mga adventure. Ano yung adventure? Medyo kinakalas-kalas tayo, may alon, may konting challenging sa kargada, sa pag-aangkorahe, no? May kasama sa buhay ng seaman yan. Okay? Yun yung hinahanap-hanap ng mga lalaki, yung adventure, sir. No? Mabuti nga tayo, mag-adventure na tayo, malaki pa sahod. Di ba? Sabi ko nga sa inyo, mas malaki ang sahod natin kumpara sa ibang barko. Kagaya ni Sir, sino nga yung nag-share kahapon, Sir? Sir Wilbert ba yun? Ikaw ba yun, Sir? Yung 1.8 ang difference? Naka-unmute ka, Sir. Paki-unmute.
Sorry, sir. Si Sir John Paulo ata yun, sir?
Si Sir John Paulo. Yun, tama. Si Sir John Paulo. Magkano, Sir? Yung pagitan ng sahod mo sa napagkasunduan niyo dapat?
1.8, sir. 1.5 to 1.8.
Kalahin mo yun. So, hindi mo sinunggaban yung bulk.
Hindi, sir. Kasi mas mahirap ang trabaho doon. Mas maliit ang bayan. Wala advantage.
Tama ka, sir, no? maliit ang bayad, mahirap pa ang trabaho, no? Sa mga dibuhos. So, ikaw sir, kung papipiliin ka, mas gusto mo na dito sa LPG, tuloy-tuloy na.
Kung may magpapasakay, sir, oo naman.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Ako sir, kung ako masusunod din sa inyo, dito na kayo sa LPG. No, kaya yung mga kasama niyo sir sa passenger, no? Sa passenger, sino nga si sir? Sir Mark Vincent ba yun? Yung sa passenger?
Yes, sir. Opo, sir.
Diba? Kahapon na-share mo na before, yung kasamahan mo from passenger ngayon, lumipat sa tanker kasi dahil sa pandemic na rin.
Oo, sir. Nag-messman na rin po.
Yes, man. Di, magkano ang diferensya, sir? Kung hindi mo mamasamain.
Hindi ko pa po kasi, sir, alam kung magkano po sa, bigayan po sa tanker. Kasi sa passenger lang po ako, sir.
Oh, may idea ba kayo magkano messman ngayon, sir?
Wala po, sir.
1,350 sir sa iba. 1,350. 1,350 sa LPG sir sa EBIC.
Ayan, no, mga 1,350 kasi wala pang bonus yun dahil sa yung OS at messman magkarango yan eh. So mga 1,500, no? Ang mga AB umaabot na ngayon ng 1. Ang huli kong tansya, pinakahuli sir 7 yung sa amin po 19 yung aming mga AB noon. 7 years ago na yun. So, okay, makakuha kayo ng mga kumpanya na ganun din, malalaki din magbigay sir. Depende pa rin sa company. Pero, kayo naman sir ang kung anong company ang sasampahan nyo. Kagaya ni sir, di ba? Ni John Paulo. Di siya satisfied.
Totoo yan. Yan to. Yan to.
Okay. So, balik tayo dito sa topic natin. No, day 1, sinabi natin, kapag hindi compatible yung previous cargo mo sa susunod mong kargada, no, titignan mo yung compatibility chart o kaya itong activity hazards, no, na makikita nyo sa inyong barko. Okay? So, paano yan, sir? So, ito yun, no? Kung ang kargada mo is LPG, which is propane-butane, madalas po yan ang kargada ng LPG, propane-butane. Kung nakita mo X dito, next cargo mo is chlorine, may X siya, incompatible siya, so kailangan mo mag-tank cleaning. Yan yung mabusisi lang na trabaho sa atin. Pero the rest, sabi ko nga sa inyo, sabi rin ni Sir, no? Mas madali ang trabaho dito kumpara sa ibang barko. Okay, pero kapag next is butane to ethylene or propane or butadiene, magkakapamilya yan, sir. So, compatible sila, hindi mo kailangan ng tank cleaning. Walang reaction or reactivity hazard na mangyayari sa inyong katawan, lalong-lalo na sa, walang mangyayari sa inyong tangke, lalong-lalo na sa ating lahat na sumusunod sa procedure na inatang sa atin ng kumpanya. Okay? Pero, ano ang mangyayari, sir, kapag nagkaroon ng reaction? Oh. Ito yun, sir, magkakaroon ng kaboom. Ano yung kaboom na yan? Kagaya nito, no? Vinyl chloride monomer, BCM. Ito yung ginagamit sa paggawa ng mga plastic. Ito ay kargada namin sa mga polypressurized vessel. No, yung mga maliliit na barko, BCM ang madalas gamit niyan. Chemical yan na ginagamit sa paggawa ng mga plastic. So, tingnan niyo sir ha. Kung naaalala niyo yung nangyari sa... Ano yung nangyari sir? Yung nangyari sa Lebanon. No? Ano yon? Yung... explosion. O, di ba? Pause lang muna natin yung recording. Okay, so yan yung nangyari sa Beirut. Okay, napakalaking disaster, no? At maswerte pa rin tayo. Blessed pa rin tayo kasi sa Pilipinas never pa nangyari yan. At wag naman sana. Okay? Lalo na, daming problema, no? COVID-19, sa kanila, hyperinflation, mas grabe pa ang mga corrupt officials diyan sa Lebanon. Okay? Pero at least sa atin, no, alam natin na sa ating mga seaman, alam natin posible mangyaring ganito kapag hindi natin nasunod yung sinasabi nating compatibility chart. Okay? So kailangan aware tayo dito at alam natin yung ginagawa natin. Kasi hindi lang 'yun ang pwedeng mangyari, no, yung sa ating kapaligiran. Okay? Posible din na mangyari 'yan sa ating mismong katawan. Okay? Paano? Ano 'yun? Mga normal na chemicals na ginagamit natin sa bahay. No, ganito rin ang posibleng mangyari. Yung effectiveness niya. Ayan na. So, kung sa tangke nga natin may malaking epekto kapag hindi siya compatible, possible din sa ating katawan. Alright. So, now what's our main goal in making our ship safe is, please take note of this, ito yung isa sa pinaka-importante pagdating sa mga cargoes natin. Yung pag-maintain natin ng ating kargada sa 0%, as in 0% LEL, ha? 0% LEL. Ano yung 0% LEL, sir? So hindi tayo pwede sa dapat dito lang tayo sa LEL, 0% LEL. Hindi tayo pwede sa LEL mismo. Hindi rin pwede dyan. Hindi rin pwede sa UEL. Hindi rin pwede dyan. At lalong-lalong hindi pwede sa explosive range. So ano ibig sabihin natin dito, sir? Ang lahat ng chemical natin o mga cargo natin nagpo-produce ng sinasabi nating cargo vapors. Di ba? Yung cargo vapors na yan, yun po yung liquid na nagiging gas na in-explain natin sa day 1. Okay? Yung gasolina or diesel o yung LPG na ginagamit natin sa pagluto, hindi po liquid po yung laman ng tangke natin. Pero hindi yung liquid ang ginagamit natin para magkaroon ng apoy yung gas range o yung gas stove. Ang ginagamit natin yung gas. Okay? So, kailangan ma-produce muna ng LPG yung maabot na muna yung explosive range bago siya magkaroon ng apoy. Okay? So, dito sa atin sa barko, hindi natin minimithing mangyari yan. Kailangan nasa LEL lang tayo or 0% LEL. Okay? Bakit? Para po hindi mangyari yung sinasabi natin na part triangle. Diba? Yung kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, kahapon, yung part triangle na nagsisimula sa pagkakaroon ng oxygen, heat, and fuel. Diba? So kapag nagkaroon yan, mayroon tayong chemical reaction na mangyayari at magtutuloy-tuloy yung fire or combustion. O ngayon, sir, paano yan, sir? Kung sinasabi nyo, kompleto na yung fuel sa barko. Diba? Yung kargada natin, nandun yung fuel. Tapos nandun yung oxygen. Kulang na lang pala, sir, yung heat. Yes, sir. No? Kulang na lang yung heat, yung spark or yung smoking. Kaya ang makikita niyo pinakamalaking signage sa barko natin is no smoking. Okay? Kaya pwede ka lang manigarilyo sa designated smoking room. O, nag-iisa lang yan. Hindi yan pwede sa kabina mo. Sa day room lang yan. Okay? Madalas. Sir, ngayon, sir, sa lugar ko ngayon, sir, mainit. Tapos may oxygen. Siyempre, nakakahinga ako eh. Tapos may fuel. Nandito yung bahay o yung mga papel. Bakit sir walang, walang chemical reaction? O walang fire? Dahil nga sir, hindi pa ho natin naaabot yung explosive range. Yes, it can be present all the time. Kahit dito sa kwarto ko ngayon, present yan. May source of heat, yung sun. Merong fuel, yung combustible materials. Papel o light materials. Tapos meron ding oxygen. So kompleto yung part triangle pero hindi siya mabubuo kasi walang chemical reaction dahil hindi naman umaabot nun sa explosive range. At yan ang kailangan niyang tandaan pagdating sa kargada natin. Since hindi na nga kompleto yung part triangle, wala tayong smoking, wala tayong source of heat. Another safety feature natin is yung cargo natin, hindi natin pina-reach o pina-aabot sa explosive range. Dapat hindi siya doon sa 2 reach, hindi siya doon sa UEL or upper explosive limit, at hindi rin siya doon sa LEL or lower explosive limit or 2 LIN. Okay? At mas lalong-lalo na sa explosive range. Okay? Naiintindihan ba natin ito mga sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, copy. Okay? So, ito, sample. Bakit gasolina at diesel ang laging ginagamit natin sa sasakyan? Simple lang. Mas madali siyang mag-combust. Mas madali siyang maka-reach sa kanyang explosive range. 1% lang, magliliyab na. Magkakaroon na ng combustion. 0.6% lang sa diesel, magkakaroon na ng combustion, aandar na ang makina ng sasakyan mo. Okay? Ganun lang po kadali yun. Pero kapag 2 LIN or 2 reach, hindi siya magkakaroon ng combustion. Okay? So, yan. Gets na po natin yan. At ganun din sa ating mga kargada. Okay? So, kailangan, kung ang gasolina, ang kargada mo, alam mo mas mataas ang flammable range niyan or mas mabilis, hindi ka dapat aabot doon sa flammable range. Okay? Yan lang po yung basic concept niya. Okay. Next na tayo. Ito naman bleed. Ano naman
When a
bleed?
tank is exposed to sustained heat, such as from a fire, the liquid within the tank is forced to boil or vaporize, resulting in increased pressure in the tank. To begin distressing the tank, the relief device activates, venting the excess pressure.
Naalala niyo yung relief valve? Ito yung kagaya ng yung busog na busog tayo, yung tangke natin, tiyan natin, busog na busog. At gusto natin, kapag busog tayo, nadidighay tayo. O kaya nauutot, di ba? Sabi ko sa inyo, ginaya lang to lahat sa nature. Lalo-lalo na sa kagaya natin, part tayo ng nature. So, kapag sobrang init ng tangke, o nag-evaporate yung mga gas natin sa tangke, kailangan maging ano yan ulit, liquid. Di ba? Yun yung principle natin, yung condensation, yung reliquefaction plant. Kapag hindi natin nagiging liquid ulit yan, abay, hindi magkakasya yung vapor at liquid sa isang tangke natin, kailangan niya talagang i-release yung pressure. Okay? Idighay. Okay? O iutot. Kung hindi, sasabog yung bubulwak na lang yung puwet mo at natay ka na pala sa salawan mo. Di ba? So, sa tangke, ganun din. Kailangan i-release niya yung pressure kapag umabot sa maximum allowable relief valve setting or tinatawag natin, ano yung tinatawag natin maximum allowable relief valve setting, Jerome? Abbreviation yan? Ano yan? MARBS? Diba? MARBS? Alala mo kapon?
Yes, sir. Marbs.
MARBS. Oh, yun yung maximum allowable relief valve setting. Okay? So, kapag umabot yon, ibubugan niya yung titilansik yung relief valve. Yung kagaya nung pinakita ko nyo sa inyo kahapon. Relief valve yung kulay pula.
As pressure decreases in the tank, the valve begins to cool. With continued heating, pressure again builds, causing the relief valve to reopen. Where flames impinge on the tank below the liquid level, the liquid absorbs the heat, allowing the tank metal to remain at a safe temperature. With continued relief valve.
Ayun, narinig niyo yun? Kapag tuloy-tuloy ang source of heat natin, hindi siya, dahil matibay ang mga tangke natin eh. Premium yung mga gawa ng mga tangke natin. Okay? Pero, dahil coolant or negative 45, negative 50, negative 163 degrees ang kargaga natin, malamig yan. So kahit na mainit ang nasa paligid niya, no? Lumalamig pa rin, hindi pa rin sumasabog yung tangke natin. Pero yung liquid natin, tuloy-tuloy na nag-evaporate ang nag-create ng cargo vapors. At yun ang nagpapataas ng pressure ng tangke natin. Kaya kapag mataas ang pressure at hindi mo siya nagiging liquid ulit, na-liquefy, ay kailangan niyang mag-release.
Operating, the liquid level drops, exposing a greater area of the tank to the effects of heating.
Okay. So, since nagre-release ka ng gas sa atmosphere, yung relief valve mo, nagre-release, nababawasan yung gas mo. Okay? Pero, magpo-produce na naman siya ng gas, yung liquid mo mag-evaporate na naman, kaya, i-release niya ng i-release, ano nangyayari sa cargo mo, Jerome?
Yes, sir.
Ano nangyayari sa cargo mo? Ano nakikita mo dito, sir, sa liquid cargo mo?
Mag-evaporate lang, sir.
Ano nangyayari sa liquid? Nababawasan.
Decrease. Nababawasan, sir.
O yan, nababawasan, sir, di ba? Kaya ang goal natin sa tanker, ma-maintain natin yung cargo natin. Kung ano yung quantity niya nung na-load sa inyo sa loading port, yan din ang i-deliver nyo sa discharging port. Ngayon, kung lagi ka nagre-release ng cargo vapors, ibig sabihin, nababawasan yung inyong liquid cargo. At kapag nababawasan yung liquid cargo mo, kamot ulo si kamote, si chipmate. Okay? Kaya hindi pwedeng mabawasan yan. Pero sa experiment na to, ang pinapakita natin yung concept na yon. Pero hindi naman nangyayari na tututukan natin ng apoy yung mga tangke natin. Hindi pwedeng mangyari yun. Okay? Pero itong experiment na to, pinapakita yung relief valve setting. At kung ano mangyayari kapag tuloy-tuloy na ang apoy.
With the flames impinging on the vapor space of the tank, the temperature of the tank metal, uncooled by liquid, rises. At some point, due to the vapor pressure from within,
Sabi niya dyan, dahil hindi na malamig yung paligid ng tangke mo, kasi nga nabawasan yung liquid cargo mo, yung tangke mo, patuloy na naiinitan, ano mangyayari? Nagda-damage. Okay? Rumorokok, nagkakaroon ng chance na maging mabutas. Okay?
the tank metal begins to weaken, stretch, and eventually tear. As the tank comes apart, large quantities of both liquid and vapor are released in a powerful explosion.
Nakuha yung camera. Parang sa Peru.
The heat radiated is sufficient to ignite combustibles and cause burns great distances from the explosion. Tank sections containing rapidly igniting fuel can become flying missiles, traveling great distances, causing secondary fires and other damage.
Kung yung barko mo sumabog ng ganyan, magdadamay na yung ibang barko.
It all happens quickly.
Tandaan niyo sir, napakaliit na tangke lang yan ha. Eh yung tangke nyo, tonelada ang laman. Millions of barrels. Okay? So ito, maliit lang. Ganun kalaki ang epekto. What more yun sa atin? Kaya kapag hindi nyo ginawa ang trabaho nyo ng mahusay, kahit anino natin, hindi matatagpuan ng mga mag-anak natin. Okay? Kahit anino nyo, sir. Pero, ito naman ang kasiguraduhan. It is a fire. Wala namang nangyaring kagaya niyan sa totoong buhay. Experiment lang yan, sir. Okay? Experiment lang. Tandaan nyo, sir, ha? Experiment lang yan. Kaya lagi niyong tatandaan, i-maintain po natin na liquid cargo yung ating kargada. Okay? Ibabalik niyo siya palagi sa liquid. Okay? Ngayon, sir, delikado pala yung mga tangke, no? Pwede palang sumabog. Okay? Pero dahil sabi ko nga sa inyo, ang bilis na ng technology natin ngayon, no? May mga tangke na hindi sumasabog. Kagaya yung LPG natin sa bahay, hindi naman talaga sumasabog yan eh. Matibay po yan. Hindi po yan basta-basta nagkakaroon ng damage. Okay? Yung nakikita niyo sa TV na biglang LPG sumabog, kapabayaan po yan ng mga tao. No? Human error pa rin. Hindi po hindi po nangyari yung silane mo or yung gasol mo na-damage at sumabog. Hindi po. Mishandling po ang nangyayari dyan. Okay? Posible, nagpasingaw sila, sumingaw ang gasol, tapos biglang may naglighter, no? Or nag-smoke, ayun, sumabog kasi may sumisingaw na gas sa loob ng bahay. Okay? Tapos nadamay na lang yung tangke mo kasi tuloy-tuloy siyang nagre-release ng pressure or ng gas or lagi siyang naka-open. Okay? Ganun po yung nangyayari sa atin. Kaya matatagpuan mo yung tangke mo, buhay pa rin or solid pa rin siya. Tumatalansik lang siya kasi nakabukas yun. Okay? Kaya dapat i-maintain yung kapag minaamoy na kayong gas sa loob ng bahay, hindi mo kailangang tumakbo. Isarado mo lang yung barbula ng silane mo. At huwag na huwag kayong magyoyosi or magkakaroon ng source of ignition. Kung hindi, kaboom ang mangyayari sa atin. Okay? So, ngayon, ang mga tangke natin, sir, sa barko, saka sa mga, yung nakikita nyong nakakasalubong nyo sa kalye, matibay na po yan. Ito ang katibayan yan, sir. So, ultimo yung pintura, hindi man lang na-damage, no? Ang ganda ng pagkakagawa ng mga tangke na ngayon. Kahit yung loob. Nag-ano man siya, nagkaroon man siya ng relief bulb or MARBs, maximum allowable relief bulb setting, na-activate man yung relief bulb, pero yung tangke hindi po sumabog. Yun ang importante po dyan. Okay? Sige. So, move on na tayo sa next topic natin. So, safe ang ating kargada. Alam na natin na hindi dapat, alam natin kung ano yung reactivity hazards. Alam natin yung safety ng mga tangke natin. Alam natin yung LEL at UEL. Alam natin na hindi pwedeng umabot sa flammable range. Ngayon, ano naman yung, balikan naman natin yung nasabi na sa inyo sa basic training nyo before na pagkakaroon ng automatic ignition.
It is a fire hazard we keep hearing about in America from a very common product. A week ago, it happened at a restaurant. It happened at a home. Fire started without even a spark, and the cause, linseed oil, the oil used to preserve wood. It can happen in a split second, and ABC's Elizabeth Leamy seems out on alert tonight.
My neighbor across the alley, their house is exploding. Devastating fires. A week ago in Illinois. The week before that, Massachusetts. But like this blaze in Washington, D.C., they were caused without a spark. The flames started by themselves. It is the danger of linseed oil, a wood stain and sealant found in every hardware store. We're going to show you how it happens, tossing some linseed oil-soaked rags and newspapers into a box. That's exactly what Mike and Sherry Prentice of Cincinnati did.
I had put it sort of folded on itself into a corner of the garage.
Suddenly, they were fighting for their lives.
There were flames shooting 30 feet into the sky.
In our experiment, after just an hour, the linseed-soaked rags have reached 110 degrees. 2 hours in, we spot smoke. Linseed oil is safe for wood because you spread it out, but left on wadded up rags or paper, the oil is so concentrated that it heats up as it evaporates.
Some experts say take linseed oil-soaked rags and spread them out on your driveway until they are totally dry. Want to be even more cautious? Get a metal can, fill it up with water, dump the rags in, seal it up.
It's been a little over 3 hours now, and suddenly we see flames. And remember, all with no outside spark. Elizabeth Leamy, ABC News, Washington.
Okay, so pagdating naman natin dito sa kargada natin, posible din ito maranasan ng mga cargo natin, lalo-lalo na sa atin, no? If we are not cautious or aware enough, no, na possible magkaroon ng auto ignition in case lang na kagaya nung napanood natin ng mga naunang video, no. Ito naman without even a spark or introduction of source of heat. Okay? So kahit na i-maintain natin na liquid yan, pero nagkakaroon naman ng auto ignition or other sources of heat, ay medyo delikado rin. Okay? Kaya bawal na bawal po sa barko natin, sa mga tankers natin, ang source of heat or other sources of ignition like open flame, smoking, bawal ang hot work sa non-controlled area, lalo-lalo na sa kubyerta. Pwede lang ito sa electrical workshop o sa workshop sa makina, mga hot surface, barbecue, kasama na electrical sparks, frictional sparks, static charge. No? By the way, ang barko natin, grounded. Grounded na. Okay? Yan, mga electrostatic hazards. Okay, so toxicity hazards. Ito yung sinasabi ko kahapon na limitado ang ating trabaho o galaw sa barko. No, meron tayong tinatawag na TLV or threshold limit value. Eh, ano ibig sabihin nito? Ang tao, kagaya mo na isang seaman, meron lamang tayong limit, okay, na pwedeng abutin ang katawan natin na kapag sumobra doon ay magkakaroon na tayo ng epekto or makakaramdam na tayo ng epekto ng kargada. Okay? So, dapat hindi tayo aabot doon. Depende sa kargada nyo kung ilan ang threshold limit value nyo. Makikita nyo yan sa MSDS. Okay? Itatakan natin yan sa day 3. Time weighted average. So, ang trabaho natin, 4-4 lang, di ba? 4 hours duty, minsan may overtime. So, usually, dapat 8 hours ka lang nagtatrabaho sa oberta at dapat exposed sa cargo. Hindi naman sinasabing everyday exposed ka sa cargo. Wala naman talagang liquid cargo sa oberta, sir, or gas. No? Yan po ay nangyayari lamang sa mga special operation kapag nagpa-release or kailangan magpa-release. Pero, normal day-to-day routine natin, wala pong ganun. But in case na meron ganun, no, meron tayong sinusundan na TLV, TWA, no, time weighted average. So, ibig sabihin, kung nakalagay doon, 4 hours ka lang dapat na i-expose, 4 hours lang. Kapag sumobra doon, may mararamdaman ka na. Yung sinasabi natin health hazard, kagaya ng asphyxiation, lack of oxygen, or narcosis, o yung pagkahilo. Then, short-term exposure limit, ganun din, halos kaparehas din ng time weighted average yan. Pero this time, maikli lang dapat. Kasi kung hindi, 15, pag lumagpas ka sa concentration na yan, let's say 15 minutes, may mararamdaman ka na kaagad. No? Vapor leaks and clouds, so it's not normal to see this every day. No? Kapag may nakita ka lang ganyan, ay mag-ESD ka na. Emergency shutdown. Pero it's not normal, you can see this every day. In my years of experience, wala naman pong ganyan. Okay? But ito, normal ito. Nakikita nyo yung inyong kargada, ay ang inyong linyada, mga tubo, mga linyada, ay nagiging frozen or nakakita kayo ng parang snow dyan sa paligid yan. Kasi nga, malamig yung kargada mo. Talagang normal na magiging, makikita mo yan. Pero yung mga continuation ng linyada na yan, insulated na po. So, malamang makita niya sa other portions lang. Hindi yung buong linya na dinadaanan ng liquid line mo, may ganyan. Kaya ingat po tayo kasi yung extreme low temperatures, posible parang frostbite, di ba? Pero ito, yung sinasabi natin kahapon, no? Yung chemical burns ang pwedeng mangyari. Yung bakal nga, nagkakaroon ng brittleness. So, skin mo pa kaya, mas lalo na. Okay. So, yung pressure hazards, the same, no? Kapag kayong nasobra ng pressure, posibleng magkaroon ng release or yung relief valve. Okay? Kaya ito, meron tayong mga ginagamit na PPEs at yung mga anti-static measures para hindi magkaroon ng electrostatic hazard yung ating katawan. At kagaya ng pinanood nyo kahapon, no? Ventilation. So ano naman to? Kapag kailangan ng special operation ni shipmate at ni gas engineer, no? Diba meron tayong airlock na capacity pressure ang ating accommodation. Pero another safety picture is kapag kinakailangan talaga mag-release, yung direction ng hangin Okay? Kung saan nakaharap, o let's say, syempre, hindi naman pwedeng huminto ang barko kapag magpe-ventilation ka, tuloy-tuloy po yan. Kung ang hangin ay pabuga, papunta sa ano tawag nito, sa estribor. Okay? Ang suction ng aircon mo ay dapat hindi nang gagaling sa estribor, no? At syempre dapat recirculation lang 'yan. Naka-recirculation lang yung hangin sa loob ng accommodation para hindi papasok yung hangin na may kasamang kargada na binubuga natin kapag tayo ay nagkakaroon ng special operation. Pero normally, it's not going to happen. Okay? Kailangan na maintain natin yung positive pressure para hindi hihigupin yung hangin sa loob na galing sa labas. Okay? So, yan po yung importante dyan. Segregation. So, ito naman segregation. Kagaya lang din ng reactivity hazards, no? Kailangan kung hindi compatible yung dalawang kargada mo, kailangan na aware ka. Pero dito sa mga FPG, madalang po mangyari yung cargo mo, yung ikakarga mo ay magkaiba. Usually po, halos parehas na po yan or isang family lang. Okay? So, pero kung hindi maiwasan, kagaya ng mga chemical tankers, yan, kailangan mong mag-segregate. Kaya medyo matrabaho lang ito kasi yung mga linyada mo, i-align mo na hindi mag-crossover do sa isang cargo mo na hindi sila compatible. Okay? So, yan. Sa LPG, hindi po madalas mangyari yan. Cargo inhibition or inhibitors. Ito po, inhibitors, ginagamit ito sa cargo natin as additives. No, ano yung additives? Parang sa makina ng sasakyan, may addition. Nilalagyan kang langis or something para hindi siya masyadong magastos sa gasolina or sa diesel. May mga additives. Ito naman, inhibitors, additives lang ito para hindi magkaroon ng reaction or chemical reaction yung cargo mo habang ikaw ay nagta-travel. Para pagdating ng sa port of destination mo, same quality at hindi bibili ng mas mura ang iyong cargo. Okay? So ito yung totoong example ng compatibility chart, kagaya kanina, no? So ito yung mga cargo mo. Kanina, mali yung ano natin, no? Yung ito, ano naman to, pang chemical tankers naman ito. Okay? Yung mga ammonia, petroleum oils, yan. Kaya chemical tankers yan, maraming tangke yan. Segregated yan. Kasi, pero maliliit lang yung mga tangke niyan. Bakit maliliit? Kasi highly corrosive, highly cancerous. No? Kaya sa chemical tankers yan, dapat ang usap-usapan namin, kapag ikaw ay naka 3 years na dyan, lipat ka na ng ibang tangke o ibang tankers. Kasi pwedeng sa sobrang long-term exposure mo, malaki ang epekto niya sa health mo. Okay? So, sa mga chemical tankers. Sa gas tankers, no, kahit ilang taon kang tuloy-tuloy na gas tanker, okay lang. Okay, continue tayo. Yan, ito yung nakakita nyo kanina sa picture, no? Yung may hinuhulog siya sa tangke. Diba sinabi natin kanina sa inert gas, may oximeter akong binanggit. O, ito yung oximeter. Dapat umabot siya sa 20.9 or 21% na oxygen. Ibig sabihin, ikaw ay pwede nang huminga or breathable air na po sa loob ng tangke. Ngayon, kapag nasa loob ka na ng tangke, dapat meron kang portable gas detector. Ito yon, yung Rekin key. Yan, kulay-pula, GX2003. Multi-gas detector ito. Lahat na nadidetect niya. Okay? susot-sot mo yan. Kapag may na-detect yan na hydrochlorine, carbon monoxide, H2S, sulfuric acid, mga ganon, no? Ayan, may mag-aalarma yan at kailangan mong umalis kagad. Ngayon, yung sinasabi natin sa MSDS, nandun yung threshold limit value at iba pang information regarding your cargo. Ito po yan.
There's really no mystery to understanding a material safety data sheet. It's like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. By knowing and being familiar with every part of the MSDS, you can clearly appreciate the whole picture of maintaining a safe workplace. Almost everything you could possibly want to know about the safe handling of a material in your workplace is found in an MSDS. But learning to use an MSDS on a regular basis is often frustrating.
All this information to look through, how can I find what I need in a hurry?
Let this information be organized in a more logical, concise way.
In response to these complaints and others, the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, has approved a standardized format for material safety data sheets, developed by the Chemical Manufacturers Association. This format has 16 sections arranged in a concise and logical order. For example, information on the product itself and emergency situations is at the beginning, and specific technical information about the material is toward the end. In case of an emergency, its simple design allows you to find information quickly, rather than spending critical time searching for it. In this program, you will learn how to use material safety data sheets by knowing the standard format of MSDSs, as well as understanding the content of each section. Perhaps more importantly, this program will encourage you to pick up an MSDS and read it before you need it. You probably already know that the Hazard Communication Standard, the Right to Know law, requires that your employer inform you of potential hazards associated with materials you work with. Through HAZCOM training and reading labels, you can learn about these hazards, but you can also learn about the materials you work with by reading material safety data sheets. Your employer is required to have these MSDSs readily available during every work shift. You should read the MSDS for each material before you begin working with that material. Let's go over each section so you can learn how to use an MSDS. You'll also learn that these 16 sections can easily be remembered if they're grouped into main categories: product information, exposure situations, hazard prevention and protection, and other specific information. Section 1 identifies the material by its name. Spelling variations, synonyms, different grades or types may be used. However, the name listed beside product name will be the same as the one on the label. For example, hydrochloric acid has synonyms like muriatic acid, swimming pool acid, and concrete acid. But the product name at the top of the MSDS is hydrochloric acid and matches the name on the container label. The preparation date will be at the top of the MSDS or in section 1. So if you find 2 MSDSs for one chemical, be sure to check the dates and use the most recent one. The manufacturer's name, address, and phone number are in section 1, and more often than not, emergency phone numbers will also be listed for immediate assistance. You'll often find the number for Chemtrek, an emergency response service of the Chemical Manufacturers Association. Section 2 lists the components of the material listed in Section 1. These components may or may not be hazardous themselves, though. For example, water makes up more than 30% of this industrial cleaner. Of course, water alone is not hazardous. However, if you work with this chemical, you might want to know that up to 10% of its makeup is ethyl alcohol, which will irritate your skin and, if swallowed, can possibly cause birth defects. Ingredients which are trade secrets can be withheld from the MSDS. However, their hazards and how to safely control them will be provided for your protection. Because you work with so many chemicals which may be hazardous to your health, specific exposure limits have been established for your safety. You'll either find these limits here in Section 2 or in Section 8. Two common limits are time-weighted averages, or TWAs, known as the TLV, threshold limit value, and PEL, permissible exposure limit. These are acceptable concentrations of a material averaged over an 8-hour workday, which you can be exposed to without expected adverse effects. However, the TLV and PEL don't consider extreme levels that should only be tolerated for short periods of time. The short-term exposure limit, or STEL, does. The short-term exposure limit is an acceptable concentration for most people that you can safely be exposed to, measured over a 15-minute period. Often you will find a ceiling value, which is a concentration of a material which should never be exceeded during any part of your working exposure. Is it flammable, corrosive, or toxic? Designed for emergency responders, the first part of Section 3 will often be an emergency overview. It describes the material's appearance and immediate potential hazards, but it's not intended to tell you about every possible hazard you may encounter. Section 3 also lists potential health effects by providing information on routes of entry and symptoms of overexposure. For example, this worker doesn't know why his hand feels itchy and irritated, but earlier in the day, he worked with a chemical and forgot to wear his gloves. So he checks the MSDS and finds that skin contact with this chemical can cause irritation, which may not occur immediately. Always check the potential health effects in Section 3 when you need to know symptoms to watch for following contact with a particular material. Chronic or delayed effects will be found at the very end of Section 3. For example, some commonly used chemicals in healthcare facilities, such as ethylene oxide and nitrous oxide, can possibly cause reproductive damage. Also, formaldehyde, a chemical that preserves specimens, is a suspected carcinogen. Remember, Sections 1, 2, and 3 cover product information and provide basic information about a material and identifies its immediate hazards. The first section explains in clear, non-technical language what to do in exposure situations. Some common phrases might be, flush eye with water for 15 minutes. Under inhalation, remove to fresh air. If not breathing, give artificial respiration. And for skin contact, you will often be advised to immediately flush skin with plenty of water for at least 15 minutes. Always check Section 4 for first aid measures, whether it seems like a big emergency or not. The fifth section includes properties that cause a particular material to be a potential fire hazard. You'll need to understand terms such as flammable limits, flash point, and auto-ignition temperature. The flammable limits provide a range of vapor concentrations in air that will produce fire when an ignition source is present. Usually there will be a lower explosive limit, or LEL, and an upper explosive limit, or UEL. Any concentration of a substance in air between these figures can produce an explosion when an ignition source is present. Any substance with a concentration above the UEL or below the LEL is less likely to ignite. The flash point is the lowest temperature at which a liquid gives off enough vapor to form an ignitable mixture with air and produce a flame when a source of ignition is present. Be sure to look for the term auto-ignition. Auto-ignition is the temperature at which a material will spontaneously ignite or burn without an ignition source. When a material burns, certain products will be emitted that may be hazardous. These hazardous combustion products will be listed here as well. Section 5 will also include some basic firefighting guidance and tell you which extinguishing agent to use. Section 6 describes what to do in case of an accidental spill and is designed mainly for those trained in responding to emergencies. Instructions on containing the spill, whether it is large, small, on land, or in water, are included. For example, in a healthcare facility, if an ethylene oxide leak occurs, eliminate all sources of ignition, find the leak, and then shut off the lead valve. Most information you will need to know about a material during an emergency will be found in sections 4, 5, and 6. Section 7 provides general and specific practices for safe handling and storage. These practices will minimize your direct contact with the material, reduce fire hazards or other reactions, and prevent release of the material. This section also tells you which conditions to avoid when storing the material, like excessive heat, direct sunlight, or vibration. You'll find general statements about handling and storage, such as use only in a well-ventilated area and store away from heat. But be alert to more specific statements to protect yourself. For example, formaldehyde must be stored in the flammable liquids cabinet or storage room and separate from incompatible materials. The first part of Section 8 describes engineering controls such as ventilation. Part of controlling potential risks involves keeping exposures at a safe level. For this reason, the exposure levels described earlier in Section 2 will often be listed here as well. For you, the most important part of Section 8 is personal protective equipment, or PPE. Proper PPE for everyday working situations as well as for emergencies will be listed. You might be warned to wear goggles, rubber gloves, or even full protective clothing. But pay special attention to the type of respirator the MSDS suggests. Always know the proper PPE to wear for the chemicals you work with. Section 9 gives you a detailed list of physical and chemical properties. For example, the MSDS for sulfuric acid calls it a clear to slightly cloudy oily liquid with an odorless to slightly pungent odor. Section 9 will also list evaporation rate, melting, and boiling points, to name a few. Knowing these characteristics will help you work with hazardous materials safely. Section 10 names the chemicals and other materials that are incompatible with the product. For example, you want to avoid strong oxidizing agents when you work with toluene, and note that mixtures with tetranitroethane can become explosive. Section 10 also tells you whether the material is stable or unstable. Unstable material could become self-reactive, polymerize, decompose, or condense under reasonable conditions of handling and storage. Hazardous products that occur from decomposition of a material will be found in Section 10. For example, during decomposition of the anti-cancer drug adriamycin, toxic fumes of hydrochloric acid and oxides of nitrogen are emitted. Remember, for information on preventing emergency situations and protecting yourself, look in sections 7 through 10. Will this material damage genetic properties or have reproductive effects? To what extent does this material irritate the skin and eyes? The answers to these types of questions are in Section 11 in the form of detailed laboratory test results and analyses. These test results help determine the effects a material might have on humans. Typically, this information is needed by physicians and toxicologists. Section 12 describes the effects a material has on the land, water, and air if it is accidentally released. Specifically, it provides information for environmental professionals on how to evaluate accidental spills or leaks. Information on disposal, including classification and identification, is found in Section 13. It includes limitations and restrictions, as well as recommended or acceptable disposal practices. For example, formaldehyde must be disposed as hazardous waste in a RCRA-approved facility, or dissolved in an appropriate combustible solvent and atomized in a RCRA-approved chemical incinerator equipped with an afterburner. Section 14 contains information helpful in properly shipping the material. This section will tell you the material's proper shipping name, ID number, U.S. regulations, and if appropriate, international shipping information. Section 15 includes state, federal, and international regulatory information. This information will help employers comply with health, safety, and environmental regulations. Additional information which may not be covered under the standardized headings will be in Section 16. Be sure to check this section for explanations on abbreviations, revision information, references, label texts, and hazard ratings. Now, what does all of this information mean to you?
It means a lot to remember. There's 16 parts to the MSDS.
Yes, but it's well organized and fairly simple to remember. Remember the guide. Product information, sections 1, 2, and 3. Exposure situations, sections 4, 5, and 6. And for hazard prevention and protection, sections 7 through 10. And check 11 through 16 for other specific information.
Well, I really need to know all the information listed in the MSDS.
Maybe not everything, but you should be aware of how to use an MSDS and where you can quickly find important information. Remember, the MSDS does not take the place of common sense or caution. If you have doubts about a material you work with, be sure to ask your supervisor. Material safety data sheets are for your safety. They may very well be the best reading found on the job. If you're unsure about a material you work with, or you just need more information about it, pick up an MSDS and read it before you need it.
Okay. Alam na yung MSDS na yan. It's all in the box. Okay, so kompleto yung information natin regarding sa MSDS. So, ang tatandaan nyo lang dyan, kapag kayo ay nasa kargad, nasa puerto, no, at loading port, automatic po yan na i-update o ipapadala ng loading master sa inyo para malaman nyo yung lahat ng information with regards to your cargo. Okay? So ito yung mga ano naman, yung kagaya ng gas detector, oximeter. Okay? Ito pa yung ibang equipment na maaaring ma-encounter nyo. Okay? Bukod sa fixed gas detection, gas detectors, ito yung fixed gas, o nasa gitna. Yan. May mga monitoring. Ito yung mga portable, yung nakapaligid sa atin. Iba-ibang klase yan. Pero ang pinakang kilala, itong kulay pula sa ilalim, yung Reiken Kinki. Japan made. Ang hirap. Oximeter, oxygen na, itong dragger tubes, ito medyo luma na to eh. No? Lahat po yan measuring equipment para malaman kung ano yung concentration ng gas sa inyong tangke. So, gas detectors, fixed gas detectors, strategically placed ito sa lahat ng mga lugar na kung saan posibleng may singaw o magkaroon ng singaw sa kargada. Posible lang naman, hindi naman sinasabing magkakaroon talaga. Okay? So, dito naman sa during operation, gagamit din tayo ng istaba. Hindi lang ito pang firefighting. Dito sa LPG, sa gas tankers, kapag tayo ay magre-rescue ng kakilala na ng kasamahan natin na na-aksidente sa loob ng tangke, nawala ng malay, no? Nakaabang na ito dapat doon sa manhole. Kasi hindi pwede kung kailan may problema na, saka mo palang aayusin. Okay? So yung istaba, ginagamit din natin yan pang escape. Okay? Pang escape sa lugar na nalaman natin puno na toxic gases.
It's you, port forward, you have to enter it.
Fire, fire, fire. Fire in the after engine room, location 9 miles.
Right, 5 to the right, go.
Right, I've got to get out of here. Time to EEBD.
Sit up, please.
Sir, there's a fire in 9 miles after engine room. The attack party have entered the compartment and they've been beaten back. Too much smoke in the compartment, sir. Support party are mustered at 5 of them across passage and they'll get some change.
Okay, thank you very much.
CET mechanical, is the hatch closed? Right, send you through to fresh air and you report to HQ.
Okay. So, yun yun, no? Hindi lang naman ito yung fire. So, ginagamit din natin yan kapag merong na-expose tayo or may na-detect tayo na mga gas sa ating accommodation, sa engine room, etc. Okay? So, ito yung mga equipment na kailangan natin i-prepare kapag tayo ay papasok sa enclosed space. So, sa mga hindi pa pamilyar sa enclosed space, ano ba yung enclosed space? So, automatically, enclosed, kaya nga sa pangalan pa lang, enclosed, no? Yung lugar na kung saan walang hangin. Enclosed nga eh. Okay? So, kailangan alam natin ang dapat natin gawin kapag papasok tayo dyan. Alam natin kulang ang hangin dyan. O kaya naman, zero talaga. So, ang kailangan mong gawin dyan, mga sir, no? Naka one step ahead ka. O one step, kumbaga, one step ahead sa pagpaplano. So, advance mag-isip. Yan. Yan yung kagandahan ng mga magagaling sa atin, mga advance mag-isip. Okay. Lang guys, ha? So, ano yung mga equipment na yan? No? Marami yan. So, hindi natin isa-isahin. Pero, isa dyan yung DA, breathing apparatus. Stretcher, safety harness, safety lifeline, communication devices. Yung pinaka-importante, may communication kayo sa bridge. Yung papasok sa tangke or sa enclosed space, nagkikipag-communicate sa guardia dito sa watchman dito sa manhole sa entrance. Tapos yung watchman na nandito sa entrance nakikipag-communicate naman sa bridge. Kasi hindi aabot yung bridge papunta dun sa enclosed space. May dead spot diyan. Okay? Kaya relay na lang. Tapos itong tripod, makikita niyo yan sa practicum nyo. So, ginagamit ang tripod in case na meron tayong i-rescue sa loob. Siyempre, mabigat yan. Hindi mo pwedeng buhatin ang stretcher ng horizontal, kailangan vertical. Kaya yung stretcher na ginagamit natin dito, ay yung yung nafo-fold. Ano ang pangalan nito? Naalala niyo yun, sir, yung stretcher, pangalan niya ng doktor eh. Ano nga yun, sir?
Neil Robinson.
No, Neil Robertsons. Wala talaga, pagka 7 years nang hindi nagbabarko. Okay, so medical team naman, sir, kailangan natin refresh natin yung MEPA natin or sa basic training natin yung CPR. Kaya dapat, sir, hindi nyo kakalimutan na. Lalo-lalo na kung ikaw ang medical officer. Ang medical officer usually si second mate or third mate. So, enclosed space, sinabi ko kanina, no? Kailangan, bago kayo pumasok sa enclosed space, meron kayong enclosed space entry permit. Yan yung pinaka-importante sa atin. Kasi kapag hindi ka permado dyan, tapos may nangyari sa loob, ay sorry, wala pong insurance na makukuha. Kaya hindi kayo pwede pumayag sa inyong opisyal kung kayo pinapapasok ng enclosed space tapos hindi man na kayo pinapirma niya. Yung mga work hazards, mga work related na mga trabaho natin, kailangan alam nyo. Bago nyo gawin, alam nyo yung protection nyo, sir. Kaya sa kontrata nyo, dapat kabisado nyo yung CBA natin. Hindi man kabisado, pero alam nyo yung nilalaman. Yung pinipirmahan nyo na maliliit ang letra, kaya maliit ang letra nun para tamarin kang basahin. Hindi mo alam yun yung karapatan mo. No? In any given contract, ganyan lang madalas. Tatamarin kang basahin, yun pa naman yung pinaka-importante. Ano lang ba binabasa natin sa kontrata, sir?
Sweldo, sir.
So, siyempre, pinaka-importante sa lahat, yung sahod. Babase, no? So, importante rin po yung karapatan natin in case may mangyari. Okay? Pero hopefully, with your everything said and done dito sa ating training, maalala nyo, sir. Plus, yung ating weekly training drills sa barko. Yan, kaya lagi kayong binubugbog ng training at drills para hindi makakalimutan. Isa sa puso natin lahat, lagi. No? Okay, so 8 requirements for tank entry. Importante, yung oxygen, breathable, 20.9 or 21%. 0% LEL. Sabi ko sa inyo, di ba? Hindi sa 1%, kundi 0%. Hindi sa explosive range, hindi sa lower or sa higher explosive limit. 0% dapat. Ang toxic gas, dapat 0 ppm. As in, walang ma-detect na toxic gases. Kailangan bukas palagi. Alangan naman pumasok ka dyan, tapos sasaraduhan mo. Ay kung masama ang loob mo sa kasamahan mo, no, sinarado mo tuloy, by bolilyaso. Ikaw rin, kulong. Okay? Kailangan kompleto gamit. Resuscitation, breathable, Neil Robertson stretcher, communication, open communication, yung gas detectors, kailangan nandyan. Kailangan na meron tayong maintain communication sa bridge. Laging nakalag. No? ISM. No? Plan what you do what you plan, record it. At dapat naka-signature kayo dyan. Okay?
Entering enclosed spaces in a ship is a fairly common operation, yet accidents happen and injuries do occur far too often. In this video, you will hear why a rescue might have to be made, see some of the equipment used in a rescue, and you will observe a rescue drill. The scenario for the drill is a crew member has become unconscious while working in a ballast tank because the fresh air ventilation into the tank was accidentally turned off. The reasons for rescue could broadly be defined into two categories: asphyxiation and injury. If someone is overcome by toxic gases or lack of oxygen, it is a life-threatening emergency requiring breathing equipment and timely evacuation. There may be no warning. If someone falls or slips, he may have to be immobilized and evacuated by means of a stretcher. The rescue operation may not require special breathing apparatus, but may still require timely evacuation. For our drill, we have enlisted the help of an enclosed space rescue expert from the Longview, Washington Fire Department to observe the drill and to offer advice and tips on how to make the drill more effective. So it's very critical that you make your anchors as short as possible, tighten the rope, the terminating point to the patient as short as possible, so every foot matters, especially when you're coming out of a hole.
Okay. Let's continue with the quiz. Okay? Ready na ba for the quiz? Syempre, hindi. Ayaw nyo ng quiz. Yan po yung conclusion ng ating day 2. So, congratulations. Less than 2 hours. Kompleto, no? Wala na, tapos na. Alright. So, may tanong po ba sa day 2 natin? Mga guys.
Ano, sir? Wala, sir.
Ano ba?
Ayaw na. Para hindi na matuloy ang matagal na pagtitiis dito sa BTLGT. At least, sir, okay na tayo sa day 2. No?
Yes, sir.
Meron na lamang tayong natitirang 2 araw. Yan yung anyong simulator at practicum. Pero meron pa tayong day 3 and day 4 na modules or PowerPoint. Pero plastic na lang yan, mga firefighting na lang po yan eh. Okay? So, medyo mahaba lang itong day 2 natin ngayon kasi day 2, day 3, and day 4 pinagsama-sama. Pero bago yan, magpaalam muna tayo sa ating Simantulungin TV. This is your Chief Simantulungin Officer, Joseph Antiquera, lagi nagsasabing, born to serve you. God bless, and lagi nyong tatandaan, ang Simantulungin nandito para kayo ay makasampa ng barko. Okay? So, kung makakalimot, mag-subscribe at i-like ang video at i-share na rin ito sa inyong mga kasamahan na nag-a-aspire maging seaman. O, shoutout muna natin ulit yung mga kabaro natin. Sir Wilbert, busy, mukhang latanag na to. Si Sir Wilbert. Ano sir, may lakad pa tayo?
Sir, nawala yung kuryente kasi sir.
Ha? Ano nga?
Pinabayad kasi hindi nakabayad.
Ang biro mo yan, oh.
Maganda pa ako ng powerbank sir.
Yung boarding house, hindi nagpabayad?
Oo sir, hindi nakabayad.
Boarding house, ano naman, may borders na nagpabayad.
Akala niyo daw kasi sir, pwede 2 buwan yung kuryente sir ba na isabay, hindi pala. Pinuntahan ngayon, pinutol.
Okay?
Oo, pinutol talaga sir.
May wifi.
Data lang to gamit ko sir.
Ha?
Data lang po sir, data.
Hindi kayo, walang wifi dyan sa boarding house mo?
Wala sir, walang free wifi sir.
Ano dyan?
Data lang sir.
Ano per day?
Ano po sir? 3K a month sir?
3K a month for 30 days?
Oo sir, ganun sir. 100 sir, kung tutuusin.
Oo nga, no? Sa amin, sir, may boarding house kami na natigil lang kasi yung pandemic talagang lugi. No?
Yung nga, sir ang hirap ngayon sir.
120 doon, sir, sa amin, electric fan, ay
Free wifi pa sir.
saka pwede kabangan.
Palit sir eh.
Ayan. Ganun talaga ang buhay ng mga marino sa mga nanonood dito na gusto magsiman. Ha? Magandaan nyo na yung magastos na training, magastos na boarding house, pagkain pa. Hindi lang pwede.
Sir,
Ano mo, pagkain mo yung dulo. Okay, sige. Shout out din kay Juan Jerome, kay Andrew Brian. Hello. Shout out. Ganmot niyo muna yung mga sarili niyo, sir. And magpaalam na tayo. Sir Vicente, John Paulo, Mark Vincent, and Juanilo Jr. So, babalik tayo ulit. Kasi day 2, day 3, and day 4 naman. So, ngayon, kakain muna tayo mga sir. Ha? May tanong po na.
Wala na, sir.
Sir, ang tanong.
Anong oras balik, sir? Anong oras balik?
Yun ang magandang tanong. Ito ang magandang sagot. Anong oras nyo gusto?
tulad gabon, sir.
Tulad kahapon. Anong oras na tayo bumalik kahapon? Alas 3 na. Alas 3:30 na.
Yes, sir.
3:29, sir.
May, wala na tayong matulog. Tuturo na day 3 and day 4. Mga paspasan natin, sir. Mga konting alas 2. Medyo marami.
Sige, sir.
Okay. Kaya, nakita na doon, ha?
Sige, sir.
Okay na,
Thank you
sir.
po.
Okay na. Thank you.
Sige, sir. See you and God bless. Goodbye dito sa Simantulungin TV.
Yo, sir.
Anong oras na balik? Anong oras pa balik, sir? Nawala ako.
Please, man. Alas 2.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Dito lang yan sa Simantulungin TV. God bless. Bye.